let's chat about kitchen sinks. So there's three main types of sink, two of which are the most popular. So we've got stainless steel, which is basically what you saw everywhere throughout lots and lots of history. And then we've got granite composite. Those are the two main materials modern sinks use. There's also a third, porcelain. And sometimes you get that when you get the farmhouse sinks with like the big aprons in the front. They're called aprons, that big flat part. And then actually there's a fourth that's like copper or a copper type metal that's used in sinks. But most of the time people don't use those for kitchen sinks, although I did do a really cool copper sink. So your main materials, stainless steel and granite composite. Stainless steel tends to be a little bit cheaper than granite composite. Stainless steel can also scratch, though, a lot easier. It doesn't really stain. You can use Barkeeper's Friend to get anything out. It's like a powdery stuff. You can use that to get it out if it does. Granite composite comes in multiple colors, which is kind of cool. Everything from white to gray to beige, brown, black, you know, like the neutral colors. I don't think they have any that are like bright blue or anything. The advantage with that is very, very hard. It doesn't really chip. It doesn't really scratch. The lighter colors, they say they're stain resistant, but the white sometimes can stain. So I don't tend to recommend the white granite composite. If you want a white sink, that's when the porcelain comes into play. Porcelain can stain as well over time, especially if kind of like the top glaze gets worn down, but that tends to happen really over like decades, not right away. And then you've got your copper materials, which can be really cool, but you have to realize when you're dealing with a natural metal like copper, unless it is sealed such that it will not patina, it's going to patina. So it's going to turn green. And in that process, it's going to go from bright copper to kind of a ruddy copper to kind of a weird crusty brown, and then finally to green. So you have to have patience with it if you want it to actually patina. Most people don't actually want it to patina though, so just keep that in mind, especially if you have harder water. It is going to be hard to keep clean. So then let's talk about shapes for sinks. Most kitchen sinks are rectangular. You've got the ones that have the rounded edges, and then you've got the ones that are really like 90-degree angles. The 90-degree angles look really cool. They're very sleek. They can be difficult to clean in those tiny little cracks. So make sure when you're getting a sink that it does have, you have the ability to kind of get in there and clean, or else gunk can kind of build up. Again, especially if you have hard water. Most people don't use round or square sinks for their kitchens just because they're not big enough. There's also different options for basins. You've got your single basin sink, which is like the big sink, the one that you can fit a cookie sheet in or a really big frying pan and not worry about when you're cleaning it having the water spraying up at you. Double basin sinks, there's the ones that are equal basin. A lot of times people will get the equal basin if they like to soak their dishes in one side and then rinse them in the other. Or if they like to do their dishes in the one side and dry them in the other. So there's like little drying racks you can get on the bottom. And then there's also the double basin sinks where the one basin is significantly smaller. And the point of that one is if you like to scrape off your plates into the garbage disposal, you can kind of do that there, but then you have a larger space for actually washing dishes. That's really not meant for like drying dishes in the one tiny side. It really depends on your preference for how you do the dishes. So process matters a lot, function matters a lot here, not just style. So most, I'd say probably 75%, maybe a little more of my clients like the single basin, and they don't mind having a drying rack kind of sitting on the counter, or they just dry their dishes, or they throw everything, including pots and pans, into the dishwasher every day and just do it. So for them, it makes sense to have a nice large single basin space so that they can wash their dishes effectively without getting water all over the place. That's personally how I like to do it. I have a drying rack to the side of my sink. I don't care. But I also don't have my sink in my island. And for people who have their sink in their island, having a drying rack, oftentimes they really don't want that because their island is kind of that drop space where they actually functionally use it all the time. and they need space for cooking and things like that. So in that case, especially with island sinks, sometimes we will end up doing larger double basin sinks so that you can dry your dishes in the second half of that sink. That's about all for sinks. I just thought I'd hop on here and tell you guys some stuff about sinks. Drop me any questions in the comments. Bye.